Hello and welcome. This is Captain Aquarius coming to you doing business again as Dan First on May the 20th of 2017 from the utterly beautiful and charming city of Ulm, Germany, right on the Danube River. I am here today before I go now to Munich very soon in order to spend some time there, culminating in the last event that I will do here in Germany, which is going to be the webinar, Your Sacred Wellness Zones, that will be coming to you on Friday, May the 26th at 7 p.m. Munich time. The 1.5 hour event consists really of a little bit of introductory material about astrocartography, followed by the maps of some 4 or 5 people whom I will choose from those who are present and participating in the event. Even if you have not signed up yet as a subscriber, you can still participate if you like as an observer, and you can come and join us and see what astrocartography is about as it applies likely to the maps of other people, because priority in the selection will naturally go to those who have joined as subscribers a while ago and have been waiting their turn. So, today it is our business mainly to focus on the next black moon. That is the one that is coming on May the 25th. You are about to see a chart cast for this black moon as the moment in the lunar cycle when the moon and the sun are aligned exactly in the same position in the zodiac at the beginning of the next lunar cycle. This moment is filled with potential because it's the time when the moon is about to move beyond the position of the sun, begin her next orbit, and thereby this moment is psychically powerful. Our psychic receptivity is enormous at this time. Our ability to conceive intentions and drive them with powerful currents of feeling is very great for us, both individually and collectively. Naturally, it is meaningful during this time, that is, from the mid-spring of 2017 until the midsummer in the month of August, that we are under an extraordinary planet alignment that is going to be the main subject of this video. There are actually 2 planet alignments that dominate this year. One of them, the 90-degree afflictive square angle between Saturn the Teacher and Chiron the Wounded Healer, was the subject of the previous video. That is the full moon of May 10th and 11th. This one is happening appropriately enough in what could not possibly be a better symbolic context for what is happening now than the elections, one of which happened yesterday in Iran, another one of which is coming on June the 11th in France. Elections, as you know, have now become, even before, the uncommonly insane and silly and utterly corrupt and depressing American election of 2016, the main vehicle of choice for giving people the illusion that somehow they are participating in political processes that are in fact totally out of their hands. The one who understood this very well was the late George Carlin, who once commented that if elections ever changed anything, they'd be illegal. He very well understood that the point of elections is to give people the idea that somehow they have the ability, cohering in a kind of political force, to initiate processes of change. They don't. The ones who understood this much better, for example, included Joseph Stalin, whom you see right here. He was the one who said, it doesn't matter who casts the votes, the only thing that matters is who counts the votes. Another one who understood this in very similar terms was the New York political boss William Marcy Tweed, the creator of the Tammany Hall democratic political machine, embodied here, as you see him, by Jim Broadbent in the movie Gangs of New York by Martin Scorsese, who, interestingly enough, is featured along with his colleague Robert De Niro in one of the chapters of my new book, Maps of Power, which shows how the maps of these two, the De Niro-Scorsese partnership, is accurately reflected in the maps that they have in different places, the planet lines that show their possibilities and their conditions in various parts of the world. And so we are going to begin looking now at the election that took place yesterday, excitingly, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where it turns out that Hassan Rouhani, the incumbent president of Iran, was re-elected. There was a lot of drama and rhetoric to create excitement, as there always is, even in an Islamic republic, creating doubt about what the outcome will be. In fact, Mr. Rouhani, as had to happen, won re-election by something like 70% of the vote. Because in this country, it really matters mainly which of the men in the white turban are going to exercise figurehead leadership under the supervision of the man in the black turban, that is Syed Ali Khamenei, who is the second supreme leader of Iran after Ayatollah Khomeini himself. And so the question in Iranian political practice is, which of the white hats? Is it going to be Rouhani? Is it going to be Mr. Ahmadinejad, shown here, who at 90 years old is the head of the Guardian Council, a council of 12 members who function as a kind of religious Supreme Court to make the ultimate decisions on proposals and changes to the existing ways of doing things. There was a lot of controversy and rhetoric prior to this election about how irresponsible comments could make things very weird and unpredictable. The only thing that's unpredictable necessarily is which white turban is going to get elected. If it ever happens, interestingly enough, it could ultimately happen in Iran, as it even could happen in the United States, that somebody could hack the election and an Iranian could be elected president who doesn't even own a turban and is under the age of 70. Interestingly enough, though hackers in the United States have been able to pull off amazing things, they have very much buggered the computer systems of the IRS and also of the American military, causing losses of tens of trillions of dollars in these places. Ultimately, they may indeed win the ultimate prize of hacking an election, so that instead of the elections being stolen, as they always are, by the Republican Party, the one that is usually in power, acting in concert with the Diebold financial machine company, the one who rigs the election machines just as they rig the ATM machines that you probably use today. This is something that we can contemplate perhaps at another time. The other fascinating result that we can look at now is the French election, which narrowed the field of candidates, as you know from our recording a month ago, to Emmanuel Macron, who is shown here. You can tell he's an important French leader from all of the gold that you see in the background, and Marine Le Pen. Mr. Macron is now the president of France, and interestingly enough, he is a man without a political party. This is so important and amazing. You can hear all these horns honking in the background here in the city of Ulm, though I think probably someone has just gotten married. The amazing condition here is that Mr. Macron does not have a single delegate in the French Parliament, which is why he and his cohorts are busy forming a slate of candidates to run in the legislative elections that will happen on June the 11th, so that Mr. Macron will be able actually to vote his agendas into action. This represents a complete reversal, as you know, of the usual process whereby political parties nominate a leading figure to run for executive office with the understanding that the rest of the party supports him and will vote his legal agenda into action. What is happening here is a condition of free fall in which no one can predict whether Mr. Macron's associates are going to give him anything like a majority in Parliament, what kinds of coalitions and deals he is going to have to cut as he goes along. This brings us to the chart for the Black Moon of March the 25th. Some of the things that we see here we have commented on before. For example, you notice in this chart there is the 90-degree square between Saturn, located there in Sagittarius in the first house of the chart, and the planet Chiron, whom you see there in the third house of the chart. These two roughly in an angle of 90 degrees, which tends to be afflictive and disharmonious. For more on this, please see the previous video, the one for the full moon of May 10th and 11th. The aspect we are going to concentrate here, which will be in effect now from now through June and into July, is enormously important. Go back to the position of Saturn there as you see him in the first house. He is in roughly a 120-degree angle with the planet Uranus, the one who looks like the letter H, in the fourth house of the chart, and these two in turn are both in another 120-degree angle with the horseshoe-shaped moon's node, who is there in the eighth house of the chart in the sign of Leo. This aspect is powerfully in effect now, and it will get more powerful in the weeks to come, because as Saturn ceases his retrograde movement here, you can tell he's going retrograde by that little R symbol following the 58 in his location. As Saturn moves forward, he is going to come into exact alignment with Uranus, and both of them are going to come into exact alignments with the moon's nodes as they continue to move backward in the chart. Unlike the planets, which in every chart move circle to the left, moving counterclockwise, the nodes move clockwise, which means that this north node that you see in the eighth house is going to move to 27 degrees, then to 26 degrees. It's going to move into tighter and more powerful alignment with the other 2 points. So we need to talk for a moment about the moon's nodes. They are not actual planets. They are points on the sun's orbit where the moon's orbit crosses the orbit of the sun, as you see in one beautiful example here from the website of Maureen O'Hagan. This shows the larger orbit of the sun and the smaller orbit of the moon, and the two connecting points where they intersect. Each one is represented by a symbol. The north node, that is the right side up horseshoe, forms when the lunar orbit is moving north of the ecliptic, the orbit of the sun, and the other one, the south node, is when the moon's orbit is going below the ecliptic. And so these have specific meanings, and we can only begin to touch on them now. Generally speaking, Western astrology has viewed these as pertaining to relationships, largely relationships with groups of people. The north node, the right side up horseshoe, is said to represent the gathering, strengthening, cohering force in relationships, while the south node, the upside down horseshoe, is, boy, this must be dire business. There is now a siren coming through right after the honking horns. Oh boy, I wonder what we get in 5 minutes before we wind up. Anyway, the point of these moon's nodes is that they are also symbolic of karmic conditions. This is very much reflected in the famous book by Marshall Schulman, The Moon's Nodes and Reincarnation. and the premise that the south node of the moon, the upside down horseshoe, represents our comfort zone, the zone in each lifetime in which we incarnate at the point where we tend to be comfortable and even stuck, and we hesitate to move from that point, while the opposite point of the north node is the target. That is where the arrow of our intention is aiming. The nodes have an orbit of roughly 18.6 years, which means really that about every year and a half, the nodes are going to move backwards from one axis in the chart to another. From late 2015 until May of 2017, they were on the Virgo-Pisces axis. That is the axis of analysis, mentality, intellectuality, classification, fine definitions of things on the Virgo axis versus the dissolution of boundaries, intuition, imagination, dreams, empathy, everything else that represents the dissolving of the precision and definition represented by the Virgo archetype. Now they are moving on to the Leo and Aquarius axis. The Leo axis representing the individual authority of the ruler, the king, the solar principle of leadership, who normally, under usual conditions, does not brook any kind of sharing or compromise of power. The opposite pole, the Aquarius pole, is friendship, community, the distribution of authority and power over a broad base of community and active communal participation. And so we have come to the point there where if this moon's node is in this relationship with Saturn, that is the serious teacher, the one who forces us to confront the questions of whether we are using our abilities honestly, whether we are carrying out the agendas that we signed on to fulfill when we came here, and Uranus, the revolutionary, the bringer of change, the one who is here to introduce things that can no longer be stopped and delayed and denied. We are necessarily going to be then, for the next month and a half, from the end of May of 2017 into July of this year, at a time when this triple alliance of Saturn and Uranus and the North Moon's node makes it possible for us to come up with enormously imaginative solutions under very unpredictable conditions. The French election is the perfect metaphor for this, with the falling away of an entire generation of French political leadership, as leaders and as followers are scrambling to find out how they are going to assemble some kind of new order out of the wreckage of what they had before. And this naturally then puts the French in the position of revolutionary leadership again, as they have been so many times. They may even be the ones to point us in the direction of understanding that we have arrived at a time, as Jiddu Krishnamurti pointed out to us 100 years ago, where there are no teachers, there are no masters. You are the masters now. You are the ones who are going to make your decisions individually and communally about how it is going to be. The closer we get to this realization, naturally, the more the existing powers that be are going to try to keep us trapped in this illusion that we have to follow the right leaders. It's nonsense. We complete our reading today with one of the other famous figures from French history, Francois Rabelais, the author of Gargantua and Pantagruel, who wrote at the time when the authority of the Catholic Church was cracking away in the early 16th century There can be more about him at another time. All to add now is that he had one of the most magnificent epitaphs that a man has ever written for himself. I have nothing, I owe much, the rest I give to the poor.